Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Games Network YouTube channel. What am I on? Like last week, again, I'm going to have to put together a blooper reel at some point. Like, that's inevitable. Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Games Network podcast, not YouTube channel. And as always, we're your hosts. I'm Ryan.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Andrew.
I should probably preface, by saying, you can be watching on YouTube. You might be on the YouTube channel. It's just that I completely fluffed the intro the first time round, so now I'm gonna have to leave it in because I mentioned it, and people won't know what's going on otherwise. But anyway, let's move swiftly on and forget that I made a mistake, because I'm a flawless presenter and just really, really good at my job, obviously. So, guys, what have you been up to this week?
Brian, do you want to go first?
No. I was gonna let you. It's like go nuts. Okay. All I have done this week is Zoom calls, so that's not exactly gripping.
I mean, I've done a fair bit of that as well. Definitely not as much as you. But in the spirit of communicating with people online, actually, I did a bit of... at the weekend, Steam had a promotion for Remote Play Together games. Have either of you guys tried Remote Play Together?
I can't say I have.
Do you know...
No, not I.
Do you know how it works? Maybe I should explain it.
I think...
It's like...
I was going to say, isn't it like Pass the Pad, but over the internet?
Yeah, exactly. It's really cool. It's basically one person is streaming the game to whoever else you invite to it, and then you can kind of, bind the keys in such a way that everyone can control an aspect of a game or something. You can basically do like couch co-op, but only one person needs to own the game, and they can stream it to everyone else. And it works. Like, it works really well for the most part. The way that they've done it with Steam is that it's not an automatic thing. The developers have to kind of integrate it themselves. So your kind of mileage varies from game to game. But for the most part, like it's so nuts that we've gone from 10 years ago when like On Live was being announced and it was this like huge thing and it ended up not really going anywhere. But, people have been like playing Assassin's Creed on a server that thousands of miles away. Like, it's never going to work. And like now you can just casually play the same game with your mate over Steam, and it just works fine. It's like really, really cool. But probably my favorite game of those ones that we played together, there's this game called Unspottable. Have either of you heard of Unspottable before?
I have not.
Yeah,
No,
I've never heard of it either.
Can't say I have, no.
Okay, so I had never come across it either. You have a screen full of similar, like exactly the same copy characters, and they're doing some kind of routine. And you and the other people playing are also one of these characters. And you have to basically try and blend in with the crowd and not kind of show yourself up. You're trying to find the other people, the other players, and punch them. If you punch the right one, then, you knock them out, and it's basically the last person left. But there's all sorts of kind of tasks that you have to do in each level that might give you away. Like, there might be... in one level, it's in like a supermarket and you have to buy 3 items and leave. And if you're the first person to buy 3 items and leave, you get the most amount of points. But obviously, if you see someone sneakily like going up to one of the aisles and looking a bit suspicious, and you're like, that's got to be one of my friends. But the hilarious thing about it is that because you all look the same, obviously, you don't get any indication of which one you are when the round starts. So you should spend like a good 20 seconds, if you're lucky, at the start of the round, basically just pushing buttons, like randomly trying to find out which character you are. There might be like someone to the left of the map just like constantly walking into the wall. So that's kind of your like tip off that that's actually probably a human and not one of these like computer controlled clones. A lot of fun, bizarre game. I really recommend it. So if you want to try something on Steam Remote Play and you're fed up of the usual stuff like Among Us, if you want a new party game, that would be the one I would recommend.
Nice.
Unspottable.
It reminds me, like, the central mechanic reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you guys ever played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, I think it was, the online mode for that. The idea that you were like an assassin,
exactly.
And there was identical assassins, and you had to work out who was the human control character, the human control player, and sort of hunt down a specific target. It's a wee bit like that, but less murdery by the sounds of things.
I mean, it's a little bit murdery. But it's essentially is that exactly, or like there was that one Spy Party, which I think is sort of similar, except it was just 2 players. It's just incredibly simplified, so everything's happening from like top down on one screen. So it's the kind of thing that like anybody could play it essentially. I think they've just taken that concept and made it really, really accessible.
Wasn't the ship kind of similar to that in a way as well? Scottish developed.
Yep.
The idea, like, it was sort of a more murder mystery party type thing. But yeah, like, you know, that's a genre that I didn't actually realise existed. But just games where you are an NPC. Well, you look like an NPC and you have to try and blend in to murder your friends. What are we going to call this genre?
Like the reverse Turing test. Right.
That's a perfect name for it. Yeah, anti-Turing test games. There we go. We've coined the phrase.
How about stock 'em up?
Stock 'em ups. Oh, a stock 'em up works. Yes. Do you know? I think I need to get into games like that because they are quite a lot of fun. I love any sort of game where you have to like dupe your friends and stuff. Like I love a bluffing game. I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show before, but over at Christmas, I got a mate of mine a card game called The Resistance. That's a lot of fun. And that's a bluffing game. And the last time I played it, I think my girlfriend almost left me because I convinced the whole group that it was her, that the imposter was her twice running, and it was me twice running. So yeah, the first time, you know, it was just, it'll be funny, and then she's gonna, you know, get a little bit frustrated, and then the second time, like, she incriminated herself. She was doing the whole, like, it's obviously Ryan, and I was like, you seem very eager to point the finger, don't you? And then everyone was like, actually, she does, yeah. And I just love those, like, you know, they're on par with Mario Party and Mario Kart for just ruining friendships.
The bit about Mario Party that ruins friendships is making your friends play Mario Party.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that the game can change on a dice roll, innit? It's like, you know, I'm winning, and I've been definitely the best at every mini game so far, so I deserve to have the most stars or coins. I can't remember what one's what. And so yeah, I deserve to be the person who wins, and then a dice roll at the end can screw you, and all your coins can go to someone else, and that's just the end.
No, that's it. But I think what we're learning here is that Ryan is inherently untrustworthy, and you should never believe a word that comes out of his mouth. So,
complete and utter sociopath.
Information.
But then I just said I'm a sociopath, so, you know, like, is that a lie? Who knows?
Oh, gaslighting as well. We're getting into narcissistic tendencies now.
Well, before I start incriminating myself, we should probably move on. Brian, what have you been doing with your time this week?
Well, believe it or not, I've been going defiantly old school. It's my son, who is 4.5, has just discovered the delights of Wii Sports bowling. So we have been bowling 10 pin and 100 pin, and he is loving it. Absolutely adoring the game. And it has to be said, in the last couple of weeks, I've gone from deliberately having to kind of like miss shots and get a lot of guttered balls into, hang on, how many strikes has this kid got? You know, it took his big brother at least until he was 12 or 13 to start tanning my hide at video games. But no, this seems to be a pattern. So I'm looking forward to the point where he's massacring me in MMORPGs, or, you know, it's my favourite first-person shooters.
So, just out of interest, everyone's got their go-to tactic that they think gets them a strike every time in Wii Sports bowling. What's yours, Brian? So, to the right-hand side of the pin, and then a sort of a 45-degree curl on the controller. 60% of the time it works, 40% of the time. That doesn't make any sense. Well, mine was always...
It's a dead platform, it doesn't have to make sense.
Mine was always move one click to the right and then rotate one click to the left. So you hit the first pin at an angle. Now, I can't tell you how well that worked, but I think everyone got in their own head and went, this is how you get a strike every time. I've mastered it. What about you, Andrew? Did you have a go-to tactic?
I think the fundamentals is the same as both of yours, which is go slightly to the right and then try and change the direction a little bit to the left. I guess we were all right-handed then, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine that's it. And I imagine you'd sort of like naturally come across your body with the Wii remote instead of going straight on.
Exactly, right.
So yeah, that's probably why
So we're basically trying to compensate for that beforehand, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Flick it round.
I think the last time I went bowling, which, was probably 2 years ago, thanks COVID, I think I made a fool of myself. I think I was honestly terrible. And I'm not the world's best bowler. Like, I'm not great. But I think it was just everything I did was like gutter. And I was like, how's this happening? It got to the point that my mates are like, do you want the wee ramp that they use for the kids? Would that help you? And I'm like, don't, no, leave me alone.
I'm looking forward to the point where he can try some of the other Wii games like archery or maybe table tennis, and I'm actually terrified it's going to be the sword fighting in Wii Sports Resort, because I might not make it to future podcast recordings if he's good at that as he is with bowling.
Sports Resort is so good.
Wasn't there a paragliding minigame? I can't remember how good it was, but I think it was.
There's a flight game as well. It's the weird thing is I worked for years and years and years in video games, and my dad just always asked me, when you get in a real job, which would involve lifting things or driving a van or something practical. But it was only when we went round with the Wii and he tried bowling and golf for the first time, he went, this video games thing, might be something in it.
It's funny you should mention golf, because during lockdown, like the first time round, I was living in a Wii studio student flat. Like, it was just one big room, and it was me and my girlfriend. And how I convinced myself that I was outside was I turned on my Wii, played golf, and opened the window. And so I was getting fresh air, and I was like, because I'd go for a walk in the morning, but by after lunchtime, I was like, I'm bored. So I was like, I know, I'm gonna play 18 holes. I don't even play golf. I'm not a golfer, but I was like, I'll be fun. And that became my daily routine.
Excellent. When you started that anecdote and you said, I lived in a Wii, I thought that was the end of the sentence.
Yes.
I was like, how did you fit in the slot at the front?
Yeah, you've heard the old woman that lives in the boot. I'm the games journalist that lives in the Wii. Well, I've got something that I'd like to recommend, actually, that I've been watching. I've only watched the first episode, and there's 3 out so far. I don't know if that's sort of it for season 1, or if it's sort of going to be like how Marvel are sort of slowly releasing their things. But it's on Amazon Prime, and it's based on one of my favourite comic books of all time. I think it's incredible, and it's one of those comics that I always recommend to people when they say, like, where should I start? It's called Invincible. It's by Robert Kirkman, the same guy that wrote the Walking Dead series, and it starts off like the first trade paperback, the first collection is very sort of stereotypical teenage superhero. Like, he's in high school, he starts to develop powers, but his dad's like the sort of Superman of that world. And then the story goes through twists from there. So, it just sets everything up for a wee while, for a couple of issues, and then it goes into this sort of sprawling story. But the good thing is, because it's not published by Marvel or DC, you don't need to know anything. There's no pre-existing lore or anything. You can go in at issue 1 and just understand, get it. You don't need to know that his dad once ate a sandwich, and it was life-changing. You don't need to. It's not important. Whereas, you read Marvel and, but, I had to explain the other day who Uatu the Watcher was in the Marvel comics, which, that's an interesting one to be like, so there's a giant, baby on the moon who watches the Earth and kind of just keeps an eye on everything, but he can't actually interfere with anything. That's strange. But anyway, Amazon Prime have a animated series of Invincible, and it's being written by Robert Kirkman, and so there's a couple of things that are sort of fleshing out odds and ends and changing little bits here and there, but I think it's done in a way that keeps me on my toes, being someone that's read it, but also isn't changing the fundamentals of any character. You're not like, that doesn't seem like something he would do, or oh yeah, that wouldn't happen or anything. It's like, and I think that's partly due to the fact that Robert Kirkman wrote it, so the original creator's on board. But it's really good, and like I say, the sort of start of it is very sort of coming of age superhero story. And so when I was watching it, my girlfriend was sort of sitting there and not really paying attention. She'd zoned out a wee bit until the end, where like the end of the first episode is where you get the twist that happens at the end of the first trade. And then she was like, whoa, okay, we need to watch more of this. And I was like, see, I've been telling people to read this for years, and now they've got a animated series, and people are going to start listening to me now. So yeah, can't recommend it enough.
So I think, again, the message we're taking out of that is pathological liar, narcissistic tendencies, comic book nerd.
Oh, 100%.
But also hipster, because you liked it before anyone else got into it.
Oh, yeah. I need to get my thick-rimmed glasses out. I need to do that. That's... Oh, wait. I think they're here. Here we go. Sorry, but this is just for us guys, but thick-rimmed glasses are on.
There we go. That's the Ryan we know and love.
Yeah, so...
Excellent.
It's about time someone discovered Robert Kirkman.
Walking Dead, of course. He's such a quiet wee niche. But yeah, no, it's... I think people need to understand that he does more than just Walking Dead. And yeah, it's an incredible series that I've been trying to promote for years. And finally, they've went and done a show. Don't get me wrong, I don't know everything about comics. I wouldn't ever claim to, because I think anyone who tells you, oh yeah, I'm a massive fan, I know everything about DC, they're massively compensating and they don't know as much as they think they do. Whereas I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. Like, is Batman's favourite sandwich peanut butter and jelly? Okay, that's good to know. I didn't know that. It doesn't bother me. But like, yeah, I think comics is such a dense thing to get into that like you have to really want to. And they've improved that in recent years with the popularity of the movies. Like, DC have been doing a universe reboot every couple of years, and it's really infuriating because it's like, well, nothing sticks anymore. But that's a topic for another podcast. We need to start Ryan's rants, and I just speak about comic books.
Ryan's rants. Yeah, okay.
We like alliteration here at SGN.
I think we do. We do. It is, if we can't alliterate it, it's some way. Even if it means forcing it into unnatural positions, then we're just simply not going to cover it.
That's exactly it.
It's at the very least we'll settle for a rhyme, but alliteration is just where we're at.
Or a solid pun, as we've covered earlier this week, which we'll get into in the news.
As you both know, I have a minimum pun level for a week, and if you don't hit it, you're out. Yeah. That's just it.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, really. Like, it gets stressful when the last story you're writing in a week is really serious and it's about finances or something. You're like, oh god, I've got to get 5 puns in here.
Yeah, minimum. And it's, if you can't, then I will accept a particularly appropriate gif or meme, but it's, look, there's journalism and there's journalism, and then there's whatever the hell it is that we do. So if you can't have fun in the games industry, you're doing it wrong.
We're working in most people's hobby, so yeah, like, have fun with it. That's why I never understand why when you see people on Twitter taking things way too seriously and starting arguments over, is God of War the best PlayStation exclusive or is it Uncharted, and oh, you're wrong and you're an idiot. And I'm like, you enjoyed the game, leave it alone. Like, why do you care?
But no, someone on the internet is wrong. I must correct this.
I've spoken about this quite a lot, and about how, in my free time, and about how the idea of opinions has disappeared. The idea of like, oh, you've got a different opinion to me. Oh, that's quite cool. So this is your favourite thing is this because of that. Or you think this about this topic because of this. It's, oh, you disagree with me. Well, then you must be an idiot and you're wrong.
Yes,
and
heretic.
Yeah, it's very Salem witch trials. If you're not exactly the way we are, then we're gonna burn you at the stake.
Steak.
Oh,
sorry.
It's getting into barbecue weather, so maybe.
I know, right?
Oh, and we can meet people outside. I mean, not 3 households, so sorry, but one of you two isn't gonna get invited. But we can always do a wee barbecue.
There's just the 2 of them.
A wee barbecue. Was that actually a game?
It was a peripheral.
Or
It was like a
It was
pop-up.
peripheral.
Yeah.
The wee barbecue.
Oh,
It's,
we're very Nintendo
Grillion.
heavy this week.
we really are. The $1 game. Sorry.
Do you know what?
Irrelevant.
Like, we're printing money for some developer here. Like, why they're not getting on this? Who knows? Like, devs that are sort of running low on ideas, they've hit a writer's block. Just listen to our show every week. We'll give you something. We can't guarantee it's going to do anything, but we'll give you something.
Yes, the dry heaves. Anyway, on such matters, let us move forward to the news in the hope that we might actually finish recording this podcast by the time the pubs reopen.
Oh yeah, and then SGN Night Out. We've been planning it since episode 1.
It's happening. It's happening. We don't know when, we don't know where or how, but it will happen.
Oh yeah.
By Zeppelin if necessary.
That'd be a hell of a memorable night out.
I know, right? We could actually stage the first Zeppelin raid on Scotland since the First World War.
Yes. Oh, well, I mean, we've got plans. Like, we already said it has to be karaoke themed. I think it has to be a shit shirt night, just because they're always good fun. And it has to be in a Zeppelin.
Do not go there, right? Because I'll tell you now, you're going to lose.
Okay, I mean, I have a flowy lavender, yellow, white and black striped shirt it's just awful in every way. It looks like something Chandler Bing would wear if he was on acid. Yeah, I think I got it in Primark or something, and I bought it when I saw it. I was like, I need it, because next time I'm going on a shit shirt night, that's what I'm wearing.
See, you've only known me since lockdown. The knitwear thing that's going on at the moment is not my usual MO. It's ask around. I think say the words baglow and shirt, and you'll get some physical reactions.
I think I saw you tweet
the Paisley
around,
Prince.
Yeah, I was going to say around Christmas time you tweeted a matching face mask and shirt Paisley combo. Yeah, that was a statement.
Yeah,
Did you cut
job.
a panel out of the back of it, out the back of that shirt to match it, so you can't wear that shirt anymore to go outside?
No. It's just out one of the sleeves, so you wear your sleeves rolled up, and it's a bit like if you're stuck on a desert island. You wouldn't start by eating your own head first. You'd go for a leg.
Yes.
And work your way towards the important bits. But no, I have an entire wardrobe behind me of shirts that haven't been worn for a year now. And I live this, okay? It's my last place of employment. One of the guys challenged me to a shirt off, and he showed up in a t-shirt with a hanger with a dry cleaning bag over it. Went into the gents, changed into a Hawaiian shirt, by which I mean he put it over his t-shirt, and came out and went ta-da. I was like, and it's like I'm rocking something that frankly looked like, an ethereally beautiful graveyard at particularly pink sunset with, serious goth emo overtones. But I arrived in that, and I wore it all day, and I had worn it, a couple of weeks prior. This is a 24/7 style thing. Don't be lulled by this sort of the dad kind of look that you see on the podcasts, because this is not the sort of the icy James Bond-like demeanour that I exude pretty much every time I leave the house for business purposes.
Well, there we go. I think now we need to make it a shit shirt night. So it's a shit shirt night with a karaoke theme on a Zeppelin. I think we're going to burn through the annual budget with this one night out, lads, but screw it, let's give it a go.
That's okay. We have plans for this. We have plans. We could be sitting on a little gold mine here. But again, more of that later.
Yes, and the $1 billion idea is definitely the Wii grill peripheral.
Yeah.
Just in time.
Oh, well, all right, let's get into the news, because I think we're about half hour in now, and we haven't even started. So I think we're going to have to fly through this. But first of all, I don't know if we covered this last week. I think we ran out of time, but we wrote a story, I think it went up on Friday of last week, about the Rock Trust and their Gaming for Good initiative. Now, if you're listening to this on the day it went up, that'll be the 3rd of April. It started yesterday. But as far as I'm aware, you've still got time to sign up. Essentially, if you caught us covering the gaming against the hostile environment thing in November time last year, it's a little bit like that. It's a streamathon. You can sign up and you want to stream yourself playing video games, and you'll be given a goal of like how much money to raise, or like to try and raise. And there's some sort of big names on it. I think Puri and Flax and stuff are all involved, so it's quite a big thing, and it's raising money for a youth homeless charity within Scotland. So it's well worth looking into. So if you do streaming, however frequently, it might be worth looking into and getting involved in some way.
Yeah, and if you've never tried streaming before, this is your chance to do it, and do it for a good cause. They're not looking for diehard professionals. They're not looking for people who have got their own following and their own merchandise on Twitch or YouTube. They're looking for anybody who plays games, anybody who has something that they want to share, to get out there. And it doesn't have to be a live stream. You can record something and stick it up afterwards, play with friends, do a let's play, do something like this, talk about video games. Just get something out there, get it in front of people who play games, and try and help raise money for young people in really serious situations who are under threat from homelessness, or have nowhere to call home. So it's for an incredibly good cause. They're really, really nice people. And you've got until the 16th of April to join in and see if you can do your bit to make some people's lives that little bit easier, a little bit more secure.
Definitely. So links to the article that we mentioned, which sort of gives you an overview of everything that you need to know, as well as links to the sign up page and the Rock Trust's website, will all be in the show notes if you're interested. It's definitely worth having a wee look into. And the wee look isn't another peripheral, just to let you know.
I was going to ask, we were saying that it's kind of like a good entryway to people that have not streamed before. So Ryan, you've been doing our streams on SGN for the last couple of weeks. Do you have any tips for first-time streamers?
I think the thing that some people think when they start doing streaming is, it's going to be easier than a Let's Play because I don't need to edit it. And that is very true. You don't have to edit it, but you have to cope with something that people in radio would call dead air. So you've got to try and sort of compensate for the fact that you're going to have to be talking regularly. And if it is your first few times streaming, there's not going to be that many people there. You can invite your friends and family along, but your average live stream will last, 2-3 hours, roughly? We try to keep them a wee bit shorter here and just try to sort of have a nice wee day, like sort of stream to wrap up your Monday. But yeah, if you're going to be streaming for 2-3 hours, the chances are your average, your friends might stick around for the majority of it, but most people will sort of come and go. So, there will be times where the chat is just dead. So, if you want, have a couple of conversation topics, post-it notes, just stick them on your desk or whatever. Just have something that I'll lead into that, I'll talk about that. And yeah, I think also don't be too afraid of making a fool of yourself. People are very considering, and they don't. I don't think they judge people too hard when they know it's your first stream. If you join a stream and someone's quiet for long periods of time, or they're stuttering and they're clearly nervous, it's not something you tend to judge them for, or at least I haven't found anything like that. So if you do find yourself stuttering, sometimes the best thing to do is just take a deep breath and just keep going. When I first started doing chatting in the way it is now, I never really done any piece to camera stuff other than for work within uni. And I think a lot of the time when I was trying to read through a script or try to get something out, I'd get frustrated with myself, and it was because I was just talking at my normal rate. And since your brain's getting a wee bit flustered because you're getting nervous, you stumble over yourself. Sometimes just slowing the rate at which you speak down, just like I've just done now, it can kind of help. And people that don't know you don't realise it, So I'm going to stop doing that because I'm from Aberdeen and we all speak really fast because it's cold up here and we need to get inside as quickly as possible. So if you bump into someone in the street, they're like, yeah, see you later. But yeah, don't worry about doing things like that. And also background music. If you can get background music, that helps with dead silence as well, airtime as well. Just, put that in, and then people don't notice even if they do notice, they're not as bothered by it because there's something to listen to,
Good advice.
Good advice.
Very, very good advice, Ryan. Maybe we should do a streaming episode at some point, see if we can encourage others. And, our own efforts. I would really like to do something to help the Rock Trust. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, everyone out there in listening land, what would you like us to do? What would you like to see your SGN team do to help support the Rock Trust? Would it be a whole afternoon or evening of interviews with people from across the industry? Would it be an extended version of Ryan's Let's Play? Would it be playing games created by Scottish game developers? Write in, phone in, skywrite, send us a pigeon, let us know what you would like to see, and we will try to make something happen and raise some money to help people who find themselves in a really rough situation.
Yeah, like I said, links to everything will be in the show notes, and let us know on Twitter or our Facebook group or our Discord server. Link to that can be in the description as well. What you want to see us do, because that would be really cool, and I am so down to do something a wee bit stupid, because as you know, if you've watched the YouTube channel or listened to these podcasts before, I don't mind making a wee bit of a fool of myself. So anyway, the next story we covered this week, or the first story we covered this week, because that was from the end of last week, is the Games Master book is got a Kickstarter. I think that was you, Andrew, wasn't it, that covered that?
This was me. Yes, indeed. This is great. So I don't have much of a history with Games Master myself, but I just absolutely love everything about this Kickstarter. So, I mean, basically, it's called Kickstarter Games Master: The Oral History, and it's just a kind of a history of the program from the people that made it or from guests who were on the program. We should say, actually, in case you don't know, Games Master was a game show, a kind of games magazine program on Channel 4 in the 90s, hosted by from Arbroath, Dominic Diamond, and also starring Patrick Moore as this kind of sort of unnerving schoolmastery type games challenge giver. And essentially they would have kids come on and do these kind of challenges, and then they'd have celebrities and stuff as well. So this book is collecting everything about kind of the history of the program, what went into making it, like some anecdotes from kids that are now grown up and what they felt about it. And they've got celebrity quotes as well. Like one of the guests was Robbie Williams, so they've got Robbie Williams talking about it, various things. So there's all that kind of fun stuff, but the book is made by Read Only Memory, who is a publisher in London of games books, and they have made some absolutely fantastic games books. There was one from maybe a year ago or 2 years ago on Final Fantasy VII, on the making of that, where they interviewed people from all across the dev team, people on the publishing side, like basically such a huge in-depth insight into the making of one of the most important games that there is. And it's just something that you don't really see that often, right? And I guess with it being a Kickstarter, with it being a crowdfunded thing, it lets you do these kind of lavish productions. And this Game Master thing is exactly that. It's like such a niche subject that only a few hundred people care about probably, but because it's been done through this Kickstarter, they can make it this like beautiful, like really well designed hardback that is something that you'd be like, pretty cool to have around. But the thing that's really funny about it is the reward tiers. They've gone a bit nuts with the reward tiers. So from what I gather from the clips of the show I've seen and other stuff about him in general, Dominic Diamond is a bit of a character, shall we say. I mean, I guess, Brian, you would be able to explain more about that than I can.
Not until one of us dies, because the NDAs are binding.
Write it in the Zoom chat, and then I'll read it, and it wasn't you who said it, so we're all good.
But essentially, two of the reward tiers offer like one-on-one date situations with Dominic Diamond. And the second most one is going and visiting one of the old studios and hanging about, and he promises that you can smoke a cigarette with him. I don't know if you have to if you don't smoke. Maybe he forces it upon you, I don't know.
Grabs you by the cheeks.
You do that with them, and then
a cigarette in.
Maybe. And then it ends with you going to the racetrack and him putting on a bet for you. So that's the first day.
So you could make your money back from the funding.
Potentially. Well, that's the thing, is they don't really explain whether you get to keep the winnings or not. Or it's maybe just the honour of having Dominic Diamond put on a bet for you. But the second one, there's no coming back from this one. It's getting a tattoo alongside Dominic Diamond at the tattoo parlour of Dave Perry, who was briefly a co-host also on Games Master, who kind of controversially walked off at some point. So it's supposed to be, as the role of the Grand Poobah of Kickstarter backers, you get to play Peacekeeper and bring Dominic and Dave back together after all these years and enshrine their newfound friendship in a tattoo. I have no idea whether Dave Perry has agreed to this happening or not. It doesn't make that clear. It just says you're going to the tattoo parlor whether you like it or not.
I think if
any of this could be yours.
I think if you decide to get the tattoo, then considering Dave Perry walked off, I think what you need is, the man from a fire exit sign. Yeah, I think that's what you want as your matching tattoo.
That's not a bad move given some of the alternatives.
I tried to keep it PG.
Too true. But do you know that, as someone who was more conscious at the time, shall we say, Brian, did you have any of the what exactly why it was that Dave Perry walked off? Do you know anything about that story?
Yeah, it's a sad tale. They were deliberately a little bit provocative. Dave was a bit of an egomaniac. He was known as the games animal, and he got a bit cocky, and Dominic was a bit cheeky, and he took the massive hump and buggered off. So it made for great television. It was the talk of DMA design at the time. But it seems an odd thing to keep a grudge going about over 27 odd years. But I'm glad that a book can bring them back together. The healing power of literature, ladies and gentlemen. It's a truly wonderful thing. And
ignore the fact that we're biased because we're, journalists, of course.
Games journalists.
But
that's it, right.
Oh, sorry.
So those 2 tiers are. I think that the actual book has already been funded, so that's definitely happening. But those 2 tiers, I think, for the date where you smoke the cigarette and go and bet on the horse, there was 2 of those available, and the last time I checked, only 1 was left. And that costs £1,500, by the way, and the tattoo date costs £5,000. So that space is still open. So if that's you, you've only got a little bit of time before someone else snaps that up.
If you've got £5,000 to spare and you're a massive fan of Dominic Diamond, Games Master, or both, then there you go. That's what you want to spend your money on.
Oh, you've got a small patch of skin that is in need of some ink, and you're looking for a reason to fill it in. Hey, maybe you can even turn it into a non-fungible token, and make your money back by selling off that piece of your skin to some random person on the internet. We're not telling you how to live your lives, ladies and gentlemen. All we're saying is exercise your options with caution.
Can I suggest that another tattoo option, if you do decide to go for that after listening to this, I suggest either the Fire Exit Man, because I think that's funny, or the SGN logo with our link to our Anchor and Spotify and YouTube and everything below it. That would be fantastic.
QR code.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen that people do that with there's a thing like music tattoos now where you can get like a sound wave tattooed on you, and if you sort of scan
the Transformer.
No, not like the Transformer, like an actual sound wave, like
okay,
an audio wave, and if you scan it, it'll open Spotify to the song that you've got the sound wave of. So I mean, if you want just the sound wave of this podcast, tattoo it across yourself, and then people can scan it to find us on Spotify.
What's music marketing come to these days?
Yeah, like I get liking a song, but I don't think I'd become a walking advertisement for it.
Look, there is a long and shameful history of video games offering tattoos or offering people free games if they got tattoos. And frankly, gentlemen, we are not going there, right? There was Turok did it, and I think Mirror Shades, Mirror Man or something. There have been a few campaigns where It's like games marketing people clearly whacked out of their brains on far too much free red wine and cocaine at lunchtimes have thought it was a brilliant idea to get players tattooed, and it never ends well. There was also one which featured a gravestone, but I don't remember that because of the red wine and cocaine, obviously, or possibly just the lunch. But yeah, let's
Well, yeah, okay, don't get the SGN.
walk ourselves gently back from permanently altering, the features and skin of our listeners, and we'll maybe work towards that for a Christmas special.
Yes. I do always find it funny when you see that in the news, like, different sort of ways in which some people have come to owning video games. Like, there was that guy who pre-ordered Fallout 4 using bottle caps. He saved up bottle caps from in between Fallout 3 and Fallout, anytime he found one, he kept it, or anytime he opened a bottle, he kept it. And yeah, he saved them up from in between Fallout 3 and 4, and when they announced 4, he shipped it to Bethesda's HQ and was like, hey, can I pre-order Fallout with this? And they thought it was as funny that they give him like the special edition with the Pip-Boy and everything. So that was quite cool.
I think they're kind of notorious for. I think there's a 10-year-old out there called Dovahkiin, right? There was some Skyrim campaign where it was like name your child. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure that kid loves his parents. Like, there's not going to be any sort of family trouble down the line at any point.
There is a very large, thick 3-volume compendium of, coffee table book called Stupid Ideas in Video Games Marketing that should be kickstarted. Going all the way back to Battlecruiser 2000. And if you have to ask, you weren't there. And if you have to Google it, please be careful, NSFW.
Right, okay then. I was waiting to go search it now.
That brings it full circle, because it featured the Page 3 girl Joe Guest, who oddly enough was a big friend of Dominic Diamond's.
Well, there we go.
Squared the circle.
Well, I think since we've wrapped that up in a nice wee bow, why don't we move on to our next story, which was Transfuser Enterprise Pathway Applications Open.
Yeah, this was one of mine, and this is a great story. If you are a student, a graduate, if you're studying video games anywhere across the UK, this is for you. Transfuser is the summer games competition offered by the UK Games Fund, and it takes teams of graduates and allows you to build a game, and will fund you to build a game. And there are 3 different pathways. There's one for individuals, this is the one for teams, but it's focused on helping you not only build a game, but build a sustainable business. And this is something that we're sadly lacking. Far too many of the teams that emerge from universities, and far too many of the new game studios that emerge onto the scene, just don't last long enough to get to game number 2. And game number 1 doesn't do enough to keep them going. So this is a great thing, and it's open to absolutely every graduate who's out there. You don't necessarily have to come through a games course. If you've done computer science, if you've done production, anything related, then you can actually enter this. There's $5,000 to make the game, and then you get to go on and actually bid for, or pitch for another 20k, which will get you to the point where you've got a minimum viable product that you can go and then in turn pitch to publishers. But alongside the funding, there's also a lot of business support. There's also a lot of education in and around how to build a company, which again is something that's really fundamentally missing from a lot of the games courses out there. So cannot be recommended highly enough. It comes with so many benefits. There are so many companies out there that have gone through this, and it's really been the Kickstarter for them to become a proper sort of full-time game studio. So yeah, if you're not eligible this year, go and take a look, figure it out for next year. It's going to be around and about for a while, but the applications are open, so get them in. And if you are entering, let us know, because as you know, we will write about any of the games coming out of Scotland, whether you're an individual, a part-time developer, an amateur, a student team. We want to hear about your games. So if you are out there, you are building something, keep us in the loop, because this whole promotion thing is a very good idea.
Yeah, like going back to the sort of business skills thing you were saying there, that kind of reminds me a little bit of, I think it was Yo-Yo Games we did a case study of last week. And you spoke about how when they first started, they didn't know anything about the business side of things, and they they went and learned, and they went, like, they had to sort of learn what, how to set up a payroll.
Hyperluminal.
It was Hyperluminal, not Yo-Yo. Sorry.
Yeah.
They had to work out go and sort of study up on what payrolls are and how to set them up, and pension schemes and all the things you don't think about but you need to do as part of a business. So yeah, it's well worth doing just for that. If that's what you want to do, if you want to go leave uni and start your games company, then yeah, like, you need to know that too. Like, the part of having a games business is that second word, it's business. You need to know business technique and stuff. Either that or have someone in your team who does. And if there's an opportunity like this to do it in a sort of more open way where you're being funded to make a game at the same time, then hell of an opportunity.
If somebody is going to pay you to learn how to do this professionally, take it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, it's something that we speak about quite a lot, here at SGN, and sort of like business skills within games and stuff like that, and just the things that aren't game development that go into game development is almost as important as, or maybe even equally as important as, the game itself. Because like you say, if you don't have that business skills, you might not be around for game number 2. You might have shown promise, but would Assassin's Creed be the thing it is today, like the franchise it is today, if Ubisoft closed after number 1? Well, no one would have picked it up, would they? Because they went, oh, like, it was kind of fun, but it wasn't anything, they didn't set the world on fire. So no.
If you plan to make video games for your livelihood, you need to be able to sell them and talk about them and enthuse about them and support them and figure out what your players want and use data and analytics. And if you don't want to do that, you at least need to be aware enough to know that you need somebody else to do that. And that could be a publisher, or it could be people that you bring onto your company, or it could be that if you just don't want to deal with that, you just want to go out and get a job as an X, where X is programmer, artist, animator, producer, whatever it happens to be. But the reality is, if you are planning on creating and publishing your own game, you're going to have to do this, guys.
And moving from starting a successful business within the games industry to a successful business within the games industry, this week we did a case study with Unity, and I think, Brian, this was yours.
It was indeed. This is another one of the series of case studies that we've done in and around the Dundee video games cluster with our friends at InGame. And this one looked at Unity technologies, but it's only Unity technologies because it was originally a company called Chili Connect. And Chili Connect was a technology startup that was spun out of Tag Games. Now, Tag is the company behind an awful lot of branded video games. They've done Downton Abbey, they've done Doctor Who, they've done Heroes of Might and Magic, they've done Pocket Mortys from Rick and Morty. So, some really well-known franchises. But over the course of building all of these games, they realised that they needed tools to go and actually run these games as live services. And so they started building a suite of tools and quite quickly realised that actually a lot of developers need this. And so they spun this suite of tools out into a company called Chili Connect, who did live ops, or live operations, which is exactly when you run a live game, and it can go as big as Rocket League, League of Legends, any of the, the big massive MMOs, all the way through to the mobile games, the casual, social and online side of things, where it's not just a product, come and play some levels, but it's updated. You have offers going on, you have multiplayer competitions. They provided this package of software tools for every developer. And it was so good that not only did they raise funding from a venture capital firm, which is no mean feat in itself, but within a few months after that, the company got snapped up by Unity to integrate into their, the world's most popular games platform. So it's no longer just about game creation, it's now about game deployment and live ops. So it's a great piece, it's a really interesting story, and it's another fantastic example of where Scotland's video games tech companies are really pioneering and excelling. And it's thanks to companies like Chili Connect, Delta DNA in Edinburgh, both of whom were acquired by Unity, or indeed CloudGen in Edinburgh, who were snapped up by Epic. So Scotland now has both Unity and the Unreal Engine with locations in the country. So It's a really, really interesting case study. So if you've not had a chance to read it yet, we would urge you to go and do so, because it'll make you realise that as a country we're capable of almost anything.
Do you know, thinking of Unity, we mentioned that sort of service in another story this week. We mentioned the Unity Asset Store, admittedly only in passing, but that was due to our April Fool's post that we did in collaboration with our good friend Ali Low of Low Tech Games. If you follow him on TikTok, then you'll know that he's been working on an automated sort of cross-stitch animation tool, live, sort of like real life thing, and it's insane and really cool. And the last time we'd seen him, he'd done a 2x2, and according to his TikTok this morning, which he was good enough to let us in on so we could write an article on it to promote it, he supposedly made a series of he used an Arduino Mega and a series of other IO sort of extenders in order to make Doom playable on this new tech. Now, he's since, admitted, this was a bit of a joke, after it got well over 56,000 views and Bethesda had shared it themselves and it got a wee bit mad. But yeah, it was great fun to be part of, and thank you very much, Ali, for letting us in on it, and yeah, hats off to you for coming up with it and being like, I'm just going to be like, Doom's now on this fun little animation tool I mentioned.
It's the best kind of April Fool's joke because, number one, most of it's actually real. Like the fact that he's made he's made a way of displaying things through cross-stitch, digital things through cross-stitch. That's the bit already sounds like an April Fool's joke, and it's totally legit. So that part of it is fun. But then also the fact that he has a reputation for being able to do those kind of things anyway, that people are like, yeah, of course you poured Doom to your tapestry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's exactly the kind of thing you would do. Right?
Yeah. No, it was mad, and the amount, just seeing it throughout the day. Most of my work today, air quotes work today, has been sitting on Twitter and going, oh, someone else has shared it, someone else is talking about it, and the amount of people that have been like, given the date, if anyone else had said this, nah, not true. But Ali, I think I can see it. I can see it being true, and it's been a lot of fun to see.
This is it. When you come to somebody who is building games for the original Nintendo Entertainment System and Dreamcast and 3D printing cartridges, you wouldn't put it past him.
No,
there's a particular kind of mindset. There's a particular kind of lo-fi approach, and let's be honest, Ali's just bursting with creativity. He's got some really cool stuff going on, and it was far, far too good not to share. Plus, when you see some of the other platforms that Doom has been ported to, it's not a million miles from,
Yeah, going back to Bethesda sharing it, I think they mentioned in their tweet pregnancy test is something it's on. I swear, I'm going to go...
Oh, yeah. No, it was ported to a digital pregnancy test at some point.
Yeah. So, I mean, people do love, porting Doom onto weird and wonderful platforms. So it was believable. And we mentioned that in the article where we've got a quote from Ali. And he says, well, I knew that people, when they knew I could do this, would ask for Doom. It's one of the first things. That's why I did Doom. And yeah, in his follow-up TikTok, he showed you how he did it. Alright, he alluded to how he did it. And Ali not only is doing a physical cross-stitch animation thing, but he's also working on a digital animation tool, so you can, make things look like they're being animated and cross-stitched that way as well. And so he just made Doom in that. I say just as if I could do it, as if I would have been able to do that with a month of Sundays. Never. But to Ali, it's I just did that because his brain works like that, I suppose. But it is mad, and it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, another friend of the show, Lucy Holland, got in touch over Twitter and was saying that we got her, and 100% is down to Ali's performance and that TikTok. It's so good. It's so brilliant.
Yeah. For sure.
So in that same article, I mentioned Dyslectech because I thought, let's not waste people's time too much by telling them about something that isn't actually happening. I mean, then again, we write about video games, we write about fiction all the time, so I mean, I guess we're always talking about things that aren't actually happening. But with this, Ali has submitted his Dyslectech to the Unity Asset Store, so fingers crossed it'll be up by next week, but it should be coming to the Unity Asset Store very soon, and he spoke about that in our interview with him before the Playaway Festival over on the YouTube channel and our podcasting platforms. But essentially, the idea is he's created this tool that creates a bunch of accessibility options for people with dyslexia, for gamers with dyslexia, that essentially what you can do is you can have text-to-speech, but to make sure the file's lightweight and means that it doesn't add loads of, storage space to your game's download, it just utilizes your PC's onboard text-to-speech function. So it means that if you do use that in a day-in, day-out basis, which I'm pretty sure Ali does, if you have a preferred sort of voice or whatever that you've downloaded to use or whatever, then you can have that. So that's really cool. And it also provides systems like you can pause a game at any point. So like if there's a quick flash out of text, they can, players can pause it and see what that says and then go back to the action. The sort of big thing we spoke about was, the Telltale games and how there's a timer for your decisions and you get to read 4 different decisions within the however long it gives you. Having this kind of helps people who have difficulty reading, in general. Like, it doesn't just have to be if you're dyslexic, but it's sort of aimed at that. And yeah, it's a tremendous wee tool, and once it goes up on the Unity Asset Store, you can just take the files, drop them into your game files, and it's done, essentially. So it's making your game more accessible without having to worry about researching it yourself and doing things, implementing these features on your own.
It's really important. Accessibility is the future. Why would you exclude people from playing your game? Just because they have dyslexia or they have another issue that means that your normal approach to a text-heavy user interface is designed for people who don't have these issues. And The Last of Us 2 seems to have really set a new benchmark in terms of accessibility. And our hats have to go off to Ali, because it's not just the fact that he's developing his own games, his own quirky particular style with fleas and tapeworms and, Nintendo Entertainment Systems and so on. It's the fact that he's out there, he's trying to make things better for people and make it easier for developers to cater for folk who have dyslexia. So it's a great story, and we wish him the best, and obviously we'll shout about it and share it and try and point people towards it as widely as we possibly can.
Yeah, speaking of, sort of dyslexic players playing games that are quite text heavy, before, the success of the Scottish Games Network podcast, I ran a very short-lived podcast in which we decided to play some sort of text-based games and stuff, because we thought that'd be quite fun for an audio format. But the way that we were set up, I was the one that had the game in front of me, not my co-host. And being dyslexic, that created its own issues. And the first thing we decided to do was play classic text adventure Zork. And if you want to see how difficult it is for a dyslexic player to play a game that is just all text, or primarily text, then I guess I can link that video in the show notes, and you can see that. And it's atrocious. I'm stumbling over every other word and stuff, and yeah, like, it's not great, but then we had a lot of fun recording it, so I put it up anyway. So yeah, it's there. I'll put it in the show notes if you guys are interested in seeing an example and seeing why that's important.
Absolutely. Let's illustrate the issue. Let's show people what the problem is, and we're always happy to share more, Ryan.
Oh yeah, of course. We will not stop until my face is on every website on the internet. Actually, no, not every website. I've just thought of the horrible repercussions of that. on most not most, still not most. On every gaming site or games-related site on the internet, that's still probably going to come up with some seedy stuff. Do you know what? I'm going to stop talking now. You guys could just, host the podcast and just give me a shout when I have to stop recording.
I think we'll take you in the spirit with which it was meant. We'll stick you on all of the relevant sites and actually share you with the world in the same way that Ryan from Ryan's World on YouTube has now got his own range of merchandise in Asda. It won't be long before our very own Ryan Duff has his own range of merchandise in Asda.
So that leads us into what happened yesterday on the channel, the YouTube channel. If you are again listening to this at the time of recording, we uploaded an interview with Eltonen, the sort of community manager / communications person for Team Junkfish, the guys behind Monstrum, Attack of the Earthlings, and most recently Monstrum 2. Now, Andrew, it was you and I that sort of took this interview. Do you want to tell us your personal highlights?
Personal highlights. I mean, there was a lot of. I mean, I enjoyed the cats for one. We got some cat content, but I would say, I basically just learning about how involved the community is in the making of Monstrum 2, and like how quickly this game is in. It's still being developed. How involving the community and picking like a kind of Eltonen told us about. How she picked like a sort of like crack team of the best or the most trusted advisors from the community, and then like kind of involving them in the production. I think it was like 8 of them, and I think that for me was the most enjoyable part. Is kind of demystifying, what it is that a community manager does, and it's not just posting things on social media and keeping the kind of online presence in check. It's really involving your community as part of the team, essentially.
Elle also told us,
and that kind of like interpersonal thing.
Yeah, Elle also told us about how, like, that sort of social media side of things that you think of when you think of a community manager isn't really, it's a misconception. It's not really their job. It's something that they're normally given because it kind of ties into community, because that's the type of people that will be responding to your tweets and your posts on Facebook and all that. But really, that's more the job of a social media manager. Or a community manager deals with more the sort of, like, your Discords, as well as, like, speaking to press and stuff. It's quite interesting to see what they do, and it I don't know, it's not a job that we speak about too often, if I'm honest, despite it's one that's very public facing, considering they have to speak to the community.
Yeah, look, if you go back even just a few years, guys, then what you have to realise is that when you were building a community, you built it on your website. This was before social media really took off. So you would have a forum on your website, or you would have a whole series of pages. And the goal was to get everybody onto your domain, into your website, because that was yours. And that was where they could all participate, and you could talk to them, and you got a sense of what they were all doing. But then, of course, social media came along and absolutely blew this away. So now, instead of having a single community, you've got a distributed community, which can be taking place on Discord and Facebook and LinkedIn and Reddit and Twitter and Instagram and all of the many different channels out there. We're starting to see this ourselves. The website is still the hub of the Scottish Games Network, but the Facebook group is really, really active. It's the LinkedIn group less so. Twitter is awesome. Instagram we're still trying to get to grips with, and Ryan, you've done an absolutely blown away by the job that you've done with YouTube and Discord. So there's a huge amount of outreach. There's a huge amount of connection and engagement going on out there that's happening under the kind of the term community, that is really fundamental to this whole issue of sustainability. If you're, we talked about live ops earlier with Chile Connect and Unity, but your community manager or community team are absolutely key to this. If your players aren't happy, you need to know. And if you're not paying attention to them, you're not looking at your data, you're not listening to the community folks, you're not going to find out until they all just vanish into thin air.
Well, we were speaking to Malcolm from Earthbound Games earlier in the week. That should go up next week at some point on the channel, and he was saying that before in about 2019, a few years ago in 2019, he had a couple of very good community managers, and they're kind of sorely missed now because they're not there, and the team's really going for trying to make Axiom Soccer a big thing again, and they're really going full steam ahead with it. And yeah, they're sorely missed, and it shows you just how important community managers can be. That, you know, this studio head saying like, yeah, we need people like that, and they were so helpful the first time round, you know.
But it's a specialist role, you know. Let's be honest, we don't have an awful lot of people in the game sector who are really good at communicating or really enjoy communicating, and we have a lot of people who just want to get on and do their own thing, and it's not necessarily a social element. And I think this is why it's conflated with social media so often. I mean, social media is the channel, but social media people tend to be marketers. Your community takes into account user support. It takes into account technology support. It takes into account customer service of pretty much every description, and just being outgoing and chatty and welcoming and making people feel like they matter. You know, that's probably the worst thing about a video game, is if you get the sense that nobody cares whether you're there or not, or whether you're enjoying it or not. So a community manager is a really, really significant part of the team, and it's really illustrative of the way that games has grown beyond the traditional roles, programmer and artist. And you now need so many more people with so many different skills, not necessarily the technical skills, but the soft skills, people skills, social skills, in order to be able to build that engagement. So it was fantastic to have Elton involved, and to really hear more about how Junkfish has approached using their players. Because if you've got hardcore fans, you've got hardcore players out there who love what you do, then yeah, you know, taking their opinion on board and again making them feel involved is a very, very smart move. Well,
just slightly off topic here, but I'm very good at doing that, so we're going to just take that on the chin. I know for a fact I definitely would not follow Looney Tunes on Instagram if it wasn't for the guy that does that, because he's brilliant, if I'm honest. And I think that's it's really good to build, Looney Tunes doesn't need to build a brand, but it's really good to sort of foster a community through your sort of socials or through sort of community outreach and stuff. And on the Looney Tunes Instagram, there's constantly jokes and funny things going on and stuff, and the guy's just making fun of the fact that his job is he posts to Instagram for Bugs Bunny, you know, and it's really enjoyable. But then that's an incredible marketing tool at the same time, because as soon as the Space Jam movie that's meant to be coming out, I think it's later this year, was started filming and stuff, he was posting about it. And then all of a sudden, instead of just maybe catching, you know, a poster on the side of a bus or something, or an ad before a YouTube video, I've been really hyped about the new Looney Tunes movie for ages, and it's because of this guy, if I'm honest. Don't get me wrong, I definitely went and watched Space Jam 2, but that's mainly for nostalgia reasons. But yeah, I think it's so important to have a good community hook and something that gets people talking, not only with people other people on the internet about, you know, the game or the movie or whatever you're doing, but also get them talking to their friends about it. You know, you like horror games? Well, you need to play Monstrum. And you know what? If you like Monstrum, I'm part of this amazing Discord server. You need to join it. It's so friendly and open, and we all have a great time. And, you know, it not only is it, you know, brilliant in the sort of friendly sense, it's also good for business.
It's incredibly good for business, just in terms of the being invested in something, especially that's not when the game comes out, right? You already need that kind of support, and knowing that there's kind of, if it's a multiplayer thing, knowing that there's kind of documentation and wikis and all this kind of stuff. You want that ready for launch, right? So that you're kind of launching with some momentum. So it's absolutely essential, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think if you want to know anything else about Junkfish or Monstrum 2 or community management in general, it's definitely worth checking out our interview with Elton, and it should have been live as of yesterday morning, so definitely check it out. It should be, like, I think you'll have a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun filming it, and I got to find out about a lot of things in terms of the fan art that they get, including their flagship character, the monster, the Brute, in a maid costume, and you can see a picture of that in the video. So if you watch the YouTube version as opposed to the version on our podcasting platforms, that'll appear on screen at some point, just to keep you on your toes.
And a nice counterpoint to last week's Josh Holloway shout out.
Yes, I had too much fun filming that, like doing that. Like I told you guys that because I edit in Premiere Pro, I don't have like set animation tools, or if I do, I don't know how to use them, because Premiere Pro is like, I have this tiny wee square of it that I know how to use, and that's like the razor blade tool, the move tool, and that's about it. And so, when it came to making him cartwheel on the screen in a really sort of early 2000s PowerPoint kind of way, because I thought it would be fun to make it cheesy, I had to, keyframe it and sort of say, like, from here to here, like, I want you to move at this time, and I also want you to be rotating 360 degrees as you do it. It was great fun.
Oh man, that's a lot of effort for a cheap throwaway gag about a shirtless hunk.
Yeah, but it was good fun nonetheless.
Well, I like to think we have something to offer everybody who tunes into our podcast.
That's it.
But that's great, gentlemen. Another great week. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We just have time, I think, for our spotlight. So, Ryan,
yes.
Who's under the spotlight this week?
Well, leading in from our interview with Elle, I thought it would be best to highlight Monstrum 2. It's in early access right now. It's being continuously updated. And speaking of updates, the latest one landed not too long ago. So you'll definitely have something else to go back to if you picked it up at launch and haven't played it since. So yeah, Monstrum 2, it's great. I loved Monstrum 1. I think it's a brilliant idea, that sort of like roguelike horror. I haven't got round to playing much of Monstrum 2 yet, so I'm definitely going to take my own advice this week and play it over the weekend. Either that, or I'll just go back to the Hiramasu and play Monstrum 1, but who knows? Like, depends on how much time I've got, because, you know, I might not have time to learn the mechanics of a new game, but if you do, then definitely pick up Monstrum 2. I've heard some good things.
An asymmetric, roguelike, procedurally generated survival horror game. Who could possibly resist?
Well, that's it. And if you've liked games like Friday the 13th or Dead by Daylight in recent years, then this is definitely like in the same vein, in the sense like, yeah, like the horror monster is controlled by a player, and so are the survivors, and each person has to do different jobs. Even if you've like just gotten into gaming recently and you've like started playing Among Us with your friends, it's kind of similar to that, in the sense that everyone who's not the killer is kind of needing to achieve jobs and achieve tasks to try and escape, while the other player is doing horrible things to their friends. And, you know, it's just a lot of fun. And we spoke about how the visual design of it's quite different as well. Like, you know, the reason that Monstrum 1 looked the way it did was because there was an overabundance of creepy old houses and abandoned insane asylums in horror in the sort of early 2010s, and they wanted to do something different, so they've went with that sort of Lovecraftian sea horror kind of thing, and it just looks incredible. So yeah, like, just even if you're a fan of horror and you just want something that doesn't look the same as this, the Amnesia monster, check it out.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed, Ryan. Sterling job as always.
Oh, working with a professional here, guys. Working with a professional now. Just pretend that Monday's stream never happened.
Hang on, is this like Among Us? Have we got to decide which one of us is the professional? Is that it?
Yes. Do you know what? No, it's up to you guys in the comments. Yes, engaging in activity. Yes, please let us know which one you think is the professional in the comments below, or on our social media. We are at Scottish Games on both Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us at Scottish Games on Facebook as well.
Perfect.
It's almost like I planned that. There we go. Well, thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, we've been your hosts. I've been Ryan.
I've been Brian.
And I've been Andrew.
And you've been awesome. Thank you ever so much for watching / listening, and we shall see you next time.
Thanks, folks. Bye.